Hey guys, thank you so much for joining me in another video. So I wanted to dive into something super timely, the latest handbag styles for 2025. And I think this overarching trend, or I don't even think it's like a trend, it's just like a different approach from how handbags were rolled out in the 2010s. This like shift, this new focus, it's no longer about with these new creative directions launching new quote unquote it bags straight out the gate, but rather revamping existing styles from not so much like even like vintage styles. Like we're looking at bags from the past decade. These aren't necessarily anniversaries, no archival milestones, just suddenly they're back. I did a video earlier this year talking about all of the reissues, the 20th anniversary bags that we were seeing on the runway. But what's happening right now is there is this major creative director transitional period. We are seeing a lot of these new designers launch their new bag, signaling their new era. They'll say this is the new Sarah Burton bag. This is the new bag from Jonathan Anderson. Typically, we used to get like a whole new bag. This would be the new signature statement piece. But instead, what we are getting and what is being launched and what is heavily promoted are these subtly tweaked, revamped versions of bags from the last decade, some like 8-10 years ago. I think there's something very strategic about this. It's not just nostalgia. It's not a reissue for the sake of an anniversary. It feels like these brands are cautiously maintaining the continuity of their brand's legacy rather than disrupting it. So let's talk about some of these new bags, and I've also wanted to talk about these bags in general, but first we've got the Givenchy Antigone East West. As soon as I saw this bag, I want to do a poll in it because I'm always curious to see where you guys are at. These were the results. Now, maybe I'm a little bit different. I actually do like this bag. I think it's quite cute. I don't think it's like anything really groundbreaking. Original design was by Riccardo Tisci. It was probably Givenchy's most commercially successful bag, probably of all time. Now with Sarah Burton stepping in, they've introduced the East West, the top handle version, as her first bag highlight. Just from like a design perspective, I actually think it's kind of cute. Like it's more of an East-West silhouette, which is everywhere right now. We've seen the Elia Teckle, Kate Simona, the shoulder Birkin, all very popular styles, but this Givenchy bag, it's more of a top handle with a shoulder strap. It looks like it could be crossbody. The shoulder bags are nice because they're chic, everyday kind of bags, whereas I think this is something that can lean day to night, especially this like metallic gold version, which we saw on the runway. There were like other nods to gold accessories. I think this gold is quite interesting. This is like a color that they're doing. And there's also like black and brown and pink and red. So there are those colors, but this is more the standout color. Cute like day to night bag. Of course, metallic though. It is one of these more like precious materials. We'll also say the style, it is a mini bag to be fair, but I think Givenchy bags are just a little bit more, comparing this to LVMH brands, this is still a luxury brand, but they're not as high as the other brands. Givenchy hasn't really been like an it brand for some time. They haven't gone through the major price increases. It's nothing really new. It's nothing like hugely innovative. It's very in line with the trends. It's very safe. I actually think this is quite a cute bag. Now, the next bag I want to talk about is Dior. We've already talked about the revamped book totes. That was actually the first bag that we saw with this new era of Jonathan Anderson being the creative director. I also thought these new refreshed Lady Dior bags were quite interesting as well, like very much in line with this theme. There are several new versions. Got this gray one, this really adorable ladybug one. Lady Dior. Very like tongue-in-cheek. Very like Jonathan Anderson as well, quite crafty looking. So again, it is just like a subtle tweak to the Lady Dior bag. It does differentiate this style from the styles of the past, and it's nothing too extreme. Subtle, it's not disruptive, and it just marks that this is this era. Next, we've got the Celine Phantom. Of course, we've talked about this already, but again, what is very interesting to me is this was a bag that came out in 2010. So it's what, 16 years? This is for spring 2026. So this is like 16 years. They wanted to do this and they did it alongside with the debut of Michael Ryder. Of course, we've seen LVMH reissue. We had the Fendi Spy bag, the Murakami bags. Many of them just had a lot of these tweaks as well, but those bags were timed with that 20-year nostalgia. This is more in part of this new era at Celine, but this is not an anniversary bag. It's just, here it is again. But of course, there is the link Michael Ryder has with being with Phoebe at Celine. So there's definitely a nod to that. But, you know, the whole collection was a mixture of all the various eras at Celine, and this bag has returned, but now it's a little bit different. Of course, I think the signature thing is it's got the smile, which references how this bag had a robot face, which I think is quite a fun nod to Celine lovers, and I think that is quite cool. But my reservation with this, with the flap and like the new proportion, it is, in my view, very similar to bags that look like Birkins. I think the Phantom can stand on its own. Like, I think it's its own thing. I have to check out this bag in person. We'll see how I feel about this style, but I did see the model Lulu wear this where like the flap was not out and you could actually see the cute little squiggles on the side. You still got like the impact of the bag. What I've also been seeing with resellers, posts from like Fashion File to The Real Real, is there is a huge spike in the interest in this bag. A lot of people that may have wanted this bag in the past. It is a very beloved bag. It is very signature to Phoebe Philo and that era, which is, I think, an era that so many people love. Prices are only going to go up. Now, of course, we didn't just see these bags like at Sarah Burton's Givenchy. We saw other bags. I did a video on Givenchy as well. We've talked about all of the other bags that we saw on the runways, but it's interesting that with the launch of these bags, these are the styles that they are pushing forward, the revamped styles. And I think this is where we're seeing like a real change in how these brands are operating. We're no longer seeing designers completely wipe the slate clean. It's more about a careful reworking of previous hits. Just going again back to Celine when Eddie joined, it was a complete wiping the slate clean. And to be fair, same with Phoebe, same with Michael Kors. Like, they did something completely different, brought completely different styles from their predecessors. That was like the old way of doing things. With those designers, I think they were quite strong in their design language, even though during the Eddie switchover, it was kind of a little bit rocky. It was very rocky, actually. That transition, in the end, it worked. We've also seen designers like Sabato De Sarno. While actually Sabato did do a lot of references to the past, very heritage, it was actually kind of like what Eddie did. He went back to the heritage of the brand, did the same kind of cleansing of the brand. This is the new era, but I don't think it was as successful. Of course, we can just look at the numbers at Gucci, and I think there are other reasons why as well. You know, there is a slowdown, which we've talked about on this channel, which is very alienating for consumers, and I think brands are thinking about this. They're thinking about the responses on social media, how this is going to impact the brand, and more about brand stability over creative reinvention. Versus back in the 2010s, it was about these out of the gate signature bags thrown on celebrities, thrown on it girls that immediately made headlines. It is very calculated. What is also interesting is how this will impact the secondhand market. I think these upgrades are also good because for those that are very interested in this new era, they'll have something that is key and signature to that new era. Of course, these designers are also coming out with their own bags. The ones that we are talking about are the revamped ones. I also see that more people are now like, buy the Celine luggage before it goes up. What is also happening though is a lot of these potential first-time consumers are now going to the secondhand market. I'm just thinking about a decade ago, for many consumers, maybe their first purchase would have been accessory or like a pair of sunglasses, something like that. Then they work their way up to a bag, but considering prices of everything have gone up, maybe their first purchase is just going to be a pre-loved Celine luggage. So that's how it was for me during the Phoebe years and during the Eddie years. Before I committed to actually buying the bags and the ready-to-wear, I actually bought into like a smaller thing, like a pair of sunglasses, and then worked my way up. But I think with some of these revamps, it may persuade more people to go secondhand, which is good for the secondhand market. Like the Real Reals, the Fashion Files really like capitalizing on this. But like during the Phoebe years, the first bag that we saw was the luggage. Couldn't really get anything of the past of those bags. So there's definitely that. But yeah, I definitely think more consumers in general are flocking to the pre-love market because it's so incredibly accessible. This is something like brands are gonna have to reckon with, competing with the secondhand market. There could also be like a trickle up effect, like when more people are just wearing the Celine Phantom and you really like the Michael Ryder version, you're gonna get that as well. There are positives from all angles, I think, but I do think it is fascinating that brands are very leaning heavily into their heritage, into their legacy, but tweaking them just enough to feel current. It doesn't feel like we're seeing this era of viral new release it bags anymore. For these brands, it's more so about making sure these bags continue to be relevant rather than having these flash in the pan viral moments. And I think this is, an interesting strategy. The idea of revamping bags and evolving bags is nothing new, but I just think it's interesting to see how it's done alongside these creative director rollouts and what's happening with these new bag releases. I was also thinking about how I think we really saw this with Pharrell, how he does have new designs, but I think his signature revamping was the P9 Speedy, changing it up, making it with slouchy leather. There was also a marketing strategy that was very different that added a new layer as well, a lot more expensive than the canvas ones. But he definitely made new bags as well, but I think this is part of his legacy. LVMH has found a lot of success with that bag. As a result, the Speedy as well continues to be one of the most sought after bags, be it, the classic or the P9. I will say I do hope that we get to experience the signature bag from Michael Ryder, Sarah Burton creation, or Jonathan Anderson's signature bag. I'm very curious to see, as we follow this new direction, what their visions look like fully realized. Anyways, that's my video for today. I would love to know what you think. Are you here for these new reiterations of these existing styles? Do you prefer to buy like the new style? I would love to know your thoughts. Are you someone that is more persuaded to buy pre-loved? Are you holding out for the next it bag? Please let me know down below. Thank you so much for joining me in another one, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.